Arise, minions, and welcome to unMadeGaming. We are here. We are back for our August. Yeah, it's August. Our August Ask a Lich. We have a shitload of questions from the patrons. That's fucking dope. Um, yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm back. I know I've streamed a couple times in the past week, but I'm back. I was gone for 2 weeks for military training in the forests of the middle of Virginia, and it was hot as hell. And I didn't shower for 10 days, so that was fun. It was a good time. But we're back. We're here. We're back. We're doing stuff. I am a little late on some of the July questions. For those of you that don't know, which is everyone who's not a patron. I have taken a bunch of the questions from June, and I have pulled the YouTube transcript for those cues, and I have written up blog posts. Those blog posts are currently available over on the Patreon. I need to do the same thing for June. I need to do the same thing for July. And then I will be doing the same thing for August as well. And eventually those blog posts will be going on the website, which I also recently revamped. The website is obviously unmadegaming.com. You can go see there's a couple of blogs already up there. One of which is from the June thing. Let me turn on CloudBot so that G doesn't kill me because I thought it was already on. It's on now. So some of these questions will be converted into blog posts where I go into sometimes more detail, sometimes just the right amount of detail, just the same amount of detail that was in here. For anyone new to the Q&A stream, we take questions from our patrons. We do that in the Discord, but we also take live questions, and we also take questions on our various social medias when I remember to post asking questions. If you have questions live, feel free to ask them. Our absolutely wonderful head mod and community manager is in the chat to scoop those up and put them in a little document that we have. And I have a bunch of the ones from Patreon in there, ready to rock and roll. So they get first dibs, but I will try to answer questions live as they come. And in the meantime, invite a friend. Send this to a loved one. Have all your friends and family come hang out with us. It's a good time. Cool. Hey everyone, how's it going? Void, Snow, Neutro, how's it going? First time in the Q&A, I'll do practice questions only. They don't need to be answered. We have a big old document that G and I put together. So by all means, ask all kinds of questions. Answered. Let's find the unanswered questions. Okay. Oh, yeah. Hey, you know what? This is a good one. Snow, since you're in here, and this is a baited question, since you know the answer, I'll jump in and answer your question first, which I should make into a blog. Snow says in our Patreon chat, Dear Lichiest of Liches, is there a method or a mechanic I can use to reduce, the tedium of in-game travel? This is a baited question because Snow is a fan of the travel mechanic that I employ. I forget where I borrowed this from, but it is in my list to steal everything. So the travel mechanic I use, I'm not a fan of random roll encounters, like random travel encounters. I think the travel should be more akin to like Lord of the Rings in that like the travel satisfies the story beats. So what I do in travel is I will go around and I'll tell the players, you guys get to direct a scene. You tell me what happens in that scene and how you use your unique skills to overcome the scene. So basically, it gives the players carte blanche to do whatever they want with the narrative. They can say there was an encounter with wolves, or they can say they fought some highwaymen, or they can talk down some or whatever it is. And then they have to also solve the challenge. So what challenge? What challenge did the party suffer, and how did you solve it? And I go around to each individual player and let them do the same thing, and their challenges and solutions happen over the course of travel between point A to point B, and sometimes we can build on top of that in the narrative. Sometimes I'll throw some. Sometimes I'll make a roll happen. Sometimes I just say it happens. Sometimes they find additional clues depending on what it is they do, and sometimes we spin that into the actual narrative that we are playing. So, super simple mechanic that I employ in a good number of my games. In a good number of my games, like all D&D games will have that. A lot of my my bigger Cypher System style games that aren't like one shots will have that. A lot of campaigns that have travel that don't have their own standalone travel mechanics. So yeah, that is what we do here on unMadeGaming. Because I don't like overland travel. I think it is very boring. G in our Patreon chat asks, what is your favorite type of character to play and the least favorite too? My favorite type of character to play, and this should be easy to figure out if you've watched the channel for long enough, is typically high, like, so for like a mechanics, like it's high charisma characters. Actually, not even mechanics, because I just play high charisma without the mechanics. But high charisma characters, characters who are either taking center stage or they think they're the smartest person in the room. So you can see characters that take center stage would be like Malcolm. Why can't I think of his last name? Anyway, Malcolm from 6 and 20 Metropolis. I played a child who had been granted the powers of Peter Pan. He was very take center stage, a spotlight kind of guy. It was just charismatic and fun. The same kind of spotlight taking is with Mitch from Atari Twilight, and for people who think they're the smartest person in the room, Malik Al-Assad from Void, as well as Nixarian Destarosi from 6 and 20 The Shroud. Those are some of my favorite characters I've ever played. Yeah, I like that. I'm a big fan of those guys. And my least favorite characters to play. My least favorite characters to play. I don't know. Not to give a cop-out answer, but I just don't play them if they're my least favorite. I guess my least favorite characters to play would be high-level characters in games like Dungeons and Dragons. I think it gets overwhelming. I think your list of powers becomes too ridiculous, and I think it makes everything take way longer. I think it's I like low to medium level challenges. Yeah. I don't really have many characters I haven't enjoyed playing. And definitely not like a character trope that I haven't enjoyed playing that I just stopped. I haven't just stopped playing. Yeah. Cool. So that is that question. What role in a group is your least favorite? Oh, okay. Interesting addition. The babysitter. Yeah, I do that enough when I am when I'm GMing sometimes. Yeah, I don't want to be the player in the party that has to redirect the rest of the Chaos Squad back to the point. That's not fun for me. In the same respect, I also don't like playing with people that are only chaos all the time. That makes me into the babysitter and then makes game playing a chore. So I don't like either of those things. I guess would be the answer there. um, let's see. In my game, one of my players said there was a tachyon leak on the ship, and he went back in time to get some whales to stop it. That's your travel mechanic. Interesting. Okay, that's a that's a fucking that's a good one. That's a good one. All right, let's see. What else we got? What else do we have here? Um, the whale thing is a plot from a Star Trek 4 movie. I would have never known that. Again, that goes back to a previous thing I've said here on the Ask Lich, but also just in general, is steal everything. So I don't know Star Trek. So that sounded like a cool thing that you made up. So remember, not all of your players know everything or have seen everything you have seen. So steal everything. I'm not a Star Trek fan, and I had no idea. No idea what that was. He says, this is an easy answer. G asks, what has been the most challenging thing about writing your own modules? Easy answer, writing my own modules. um, um, yeah, so I am writing, I'm in the process of writing a module. It's in the playtest stages right now, based on Carnival of Screams, the first Glenbrook one-shot. The problem is my brain thinks about tabletop games in one way, and then I write them down to support that way of thinking so that I have some quick notes and I can improv a lot. However, none of those things are the way that a module is formatted by the system that I'm playing it in. So like, D&D has a certain format for their modules, and I'm sure Pathfinder does, and Cypher does, and Year Zero does. And so I had a single page of 3 different scenes. Each scene had 3 little notes about what could happen in that scene. And that was all I had for Carnival of Screams. And I had to expand that out into a multiple page, like, narrative with enough information to give other GMs to be able to play the thing. As a person who is an improv GM, and a lot of the stuff I just make up on the fly, like a lot of things I have like an idea of what could happen or like a cool scene that I want to happen, but the rest is improv. I literally have like 9 to 10 sentences about a session that I'm going to run. And so the rest of it is completely improv. So having to go back and translate my improv of just things that I intuitively know to do and then write them down to be like, here, someone else be able to do this too, is very challenging. I don't prep a lot because I like to improv, and writing a module feels like the opposite. I have to write a whole lot to explain it to someone else how they can run what I made up, which is interesting. Yeah. That's how Fate advises people to write adventures. Scene name plus 3 bullet points. Oh, really? That's. I've never run Fate. I've played a Fate game, but I think it might have been Fate Accelerated. Scene plus 3 bullets is literally the exact way I write my one shots. I write all my sessions. It is episode title, previously on, and then 3 bullets, and then scene 1, 3 bullets, scene 2, 3 bullets, scene 3, 3 bullets. That's my entire prep page. Yeah, so that's funny. I had no idea. I've never GM'd or read any Fate books. The only Fate book I have opened is Masters of Umdar, which is like the He-Man the He-Man setting that someone made for Fate. Let's see. Let's jump into a question from chat. Lectu says, one question I forgot. Do you sometimes GM against your instincts? For example, doing a lot of prep and less improv. Oh, do I sometimes GM against my instincts? For example, do a lot of prep and less improv. Um, yes, yeah, but it's very specific. Um, like for example, we talked about Carnival of Screams. In that, I had my normal prep, my three scenes, three bullets each, but I had a second page in my prep that was literally word for word written like dialogue on a script uh, of the um, of the scene in the big top where um, where the ringmaster comes out and is talking to the players or is talking to the entire audience. So that I wrote down the entire script. Um, there are also times in when I'm role playing, especially in Void. Basically, anytime Malik gives a speech, I have written that down. I've written that down verbatim, and I have just read it off the screen. Um, I can improv a lot. I can improv a lot of like scenes and conversations and stuff because I know a lot of what's going on in the world. But speeches, I am not good at improving because I feel like a speech should deliver a message and set a whole tone and like it should the speech itself is the scene. So essentially, any time that I have a speech, like a big speech, assume you can relatively safely assume that I have that completely scripted out. I've written that out in between sessions, or knowing that I have um, um, my brain just shut off. What's the word I'm looking about? Anyway, I just lost the word. Anytime that I have to do that, I will be like either writing it while we're playing, or I will have written it ahead of time. Speech, that's the word I couldn't think about. Couldn't think about the word speech. Yeah, so all of Malik's speeches were written ahead of time. The Ringmaster was written ahead of time. But anything else is usually improv. I also say that I only prep one page, which is true. I do prep one page per session, but I have like Google documents that have 20, 30 pages that are some amalgam of like setting notes, campaign notes, character notes, etc. Like I think for the Rise, I literally have a notebook that has like the first 4 or 5 pages, like handwritten out about the world, the characters, their NPCs, and all kinds of stuff like that that I take notes on. So I do a lot more prep for world building. Because I love world building. I really enjoy world building, and I know that like 90% of the world building is for me. But for me, having that much world building already done, I that basically having so much world building done is the same thing to me as like knowing a lot about Lord of the Rings. I can just draw from that and improv. So the more I know about the world, the setting, the NPCs, the easier it becomes for me to improv stuff. So yeah. Let's see. Malik's speeches were wonderful. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate it. Let's see. Same person. Like two asks, have you ever had to abandon or shelve for another game a really cool idea because it didn't really fit? Shit. Have I? I mean, shitty answer, but probably. Um, Probably, yeah. I would have to say probably is my answer. I can't think of anything specifically, um, only because I don't write a lot of my ideas down in the moment. I do have. Let me see here. Hold on. I have a Google Keep I have a Google Keep thing that I just have. Like Google Keep is an app for your phone, but it's also, excuse me, but you can also go to keep.google.com and get there as well. But I have a bunch of random notes here that are like things I think are cool and just haven't put into a game yet. So like, let me see. Some of these are old as hell. So, man, some of these have no context, and I have no idea. One of them just says Gemini arrows question mark 2d4 question mark split conjoined question mark, which is clearly a cool idea that I had. I just have a note here that says siblings, mafia kingpin, and politician. No idea what that's for. Country where the ruler is an immortal youth. That's a fun idea. And then there's one I've mentioned before, I think really recently, is a hallway/room lined with pages from various religious texts to help trap something within, which is a cool idea. And then another one, which I really like, is a wriggling carcass, seemingly reanimating, but really is just a swarm of rats inside the body. So I have a bunch of like notes that I write down and that are waiting for something cool. Like if you go back to Paradise City, the first season of Paradise City, the cold open, where I read the voice of Sam Spade, the Yamashiro building, the shining jewel atop the pile of shit that is Paradise City. I wrote that like years ago. I wrote that in probably like 2017. I wrote that so long ago. And I just had it there waiting for a hard-boiled detective kind of game to run. Yeah, so I have a bunch of notes of things that I do. And there are definitely times where, like, if I plan something in one session and we just didn't do it, I will highlight that and put it somewhere else. I'll like copy and paste it to the next episode. Yeah. So there's absolutely things, I just can't think of anything specifically. Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. Let's jump around in here. Let's really mess up G, who's writing stuff down as I type. Neek asks. I always fuck this up. I want to say it's Neek. Neek asks favorite dice systems: D6 pools, D10 pools, percentile, D20s, etc. I really like dice systems where I don't have to roll as a GM. That's fun. You don't often have to roll in Cyber System as a GM, if at all. You don't have to roll as a GM in Tales from the Loop. You do in Void, you do in Vessin, but very rarely in Vessin, basically only in combat. Same thing with Void, is only in combat. Not Void, Jesus, Coriolis. Yeah, so I really like those games that you don't have to roll. I really like the D6 pools of Year Zero only because of the simplicity of how easy it is to learn. It's basically attribute number plus skill number equals number of dice you roll. That's the end of the mechanics. Super duper simple. However, the pool system for Year Zero specifically is actually pretty gnarly. All you need is 1/6 to succeed, and having more dice doesn't really increase your odds of success as much as you would think, because essentially it's 1 in 6 a bunch of times. So a lot of times you roll 10 dice and not a single one is a 6, and that just sucks. So increasing your stats in that game don't feel as good as other games, because all that increasing your stats does is give you more dice, which just gives you an additional 1 in 6 chance to succeed. So it's not like in D&D where it's a D20 plus something to beat a number. I do like the system. I do like how simple it is. I don't know if it's one of my favorite dice systems, I don't know that I have a favorite dice system. I guess I would say D6 Pool because it's just so simple, and D6 Pool specifically for Year Zero, just because it's again it's super simple. My favorite Year Zero system, my favorite Year Zero roll system is Blade Runner. Just 2-stepped dice +1 for disadvantage, +1 for disadvantage/advantage if applicable. What is a 2-stepped dice? What does that mean? Also avoids the extra ones from having lots of dice. Okay. I haven't actually opened up my Blade Runner book yet. I'm pretty sure G has played it, but I haven't actually opened up my Blade Runner book yet, so I don't actually know what the rules are for that. Neek asked another good question. I love this question. I don't think I've answered this question in forever. What inspired the name unMadeGaming? So the name unMadeGaming comes from my time in Afghanistan. I have a tattoo on my arm that is the inspiration for, I'll strip on camera. I have a tattoo on my arm that is the inspiration for the entire zombie mafia situation, right? So I have a zombie mafia guy on my arm, and my tattoo says "Made Man." Now, one of my best friends, Mark, is a big old ball buster, and we played a game of Assassin in Afghanistan while we were overseas. Now, Assassin is a game. A lot of people play it differently, but we played it where you would walk into a room and you would draw a name out of a hat, and that's your target. And then you'd walk into the next room and you would draw a weapon from the pile of weapons. Now you had to assassinate your target with that weapon. But you had to do it when there were no witnesses and when the target didn't see you coming. Now all the targets were also other assassins. And so once you assassinate your target, you then take their weapon and their target and you continue until you're the last person. And him, being a ballbuster, gave everyone nicknames. His was Red Rascal. There was a couple of other fun ones. Mine was Unmade Man, because I had a tattoo that says Made Man, and he thought it'd be funny to say Unmade. And I liked it. I liked it a lot. And while we were playing D&D in Afghanistan, and we had an amazing campaign. While we were there, I started world building my D&D world that I've since stopped working on, called Timorel. And I created a website forever ago called unMadeGaming.com to just like transcribe the journey of me world building. It's gone. You can't find it anymore. But it was Unmade, based on the Unmade Man, and then gaming because I'm into gaming. And then originally the channel concept was we were supposed to be a variety channel where it was tabletop and video games. Hence the logo being my arm with my D20 tattoo. How do I? Camera angles. So it's my arm, just in reverse because the thumb's on the wrong side. So it's my arm and a controller because we were doing video games and D&D when we first started. So that's where unMadeGaming came from. That's exactly where it came from. So yeah, that's that fun story. Let's see here. Instead of just D6s, you can roll D10, 12, whatever. 10 plus counts as 2 successes. So you roll 2 dice. They go from D6 to D12. And 6s or more are successes. 10s or more are 2 successes. Oh, okay, interesting. I've played before, but on Roll20, so it calculates everything for you. Yeah, okay, that's fair. Yeah, cool. I just realized the controller in the logo made no sense. Yeah, because we used to be a variety stream. I used to play video games. I used to do horror nights. We used to do community like Jackbox games and stuff like that. And then we slowly transitioned to tabletop only. And that is just a process of business. I draw far more of a crowd when it comes to tabletop than I do when it comes to Video games. And video games are now my relaxed thing. And not that I don't find tabletop games relaxing. I still play those on the weekends with friends. But video games are how I like wind down at the end of the day. All right, let's see. Let's scroll back up here. What are some good tips for effective between session prep? This comes from G. What are some good tips for effective between session prep? G, you're here in chat, so I'm going to ask you for some clarification, maybe? Isn't all prep done between sessions? Isn't that just regular prep? You respond, and I'll drink some delicious Monster. Also, I have a bag of delicious extreme sour Sour Patch Kids right here that's unopened, and it's just staring me in the face, and I'm dying to open it, but it's just a crinkly crunching sound, and I don't want you to see me like just chewing on like a cow, just chewing on a whole handful of Sour Patch Kids. Yeah. I got a tip. End the game in a what are you going to do next? So you can prep that single scene. That's what I do. So G says, yes, but I guess during a story, what are some tips to better use your time for session prep? Okay. I feel like this question stems from your tendency to over prep things. During a story. So, okay. So when I'm prepping during a game, as opposed to before a game, sorry to just call you out like that, G. I do have several TikToks dedicated straight to you. So when I'm prepping during a game as opposed to before a game, one, I have my template that I use for, like I said, episode title, previously on, scene 1, 3 bullets, 2, 3 bullets, 3 bullets, right? I do not deviate from that for session prep. Everything goes into that, and I try my damnedest to make it fit on one page. I am more often than not correct. It fits on one page. So I nail it more often than not. Very few times does it slip onto a second page, and then also at that point I'm super anal and I'll go back and like change words or abbreviate things to make sure it fits on one. I'm a little extra. What I do is, so I have that and I do it in a Google Doc. A notebook works fine as well, whatever works for you, but I have it in a Google Doc. And then I create a second page. And I create the second page called notes. And then I will keep notes. Like I'll type out notes of things that I know I'm not going to remember, or things that I made up that seem really cool or that could come back. Or I will type out very interesting things that the players have done that I think could be potential story in the future. And I'll type those out. So on the second page, it's called notes, has a bunch of notes on there. And then sometimes I break that down further. Like I'll have player notes, and these are things that the players did that were cool. I'll have campaign notes that are like things that I said that were cool, or like a random thought that occurred to me while we were playing the game. Or while I was prepping, I happened to glance over and look at the Discord, and somebody had a cool theory, and I just copy and paste that and put that in there somewhere to say writing things out. To just put that in there as like a have to like look back to. And then I also do another page that is a list of our stars and wishes. Well, just our wishes. At the end of my stream sessions, at the end of my Patreon sessions, and at the end of my paid GM sessions, we do stars and wishes, much like on all the stream shows. And so I write down everyone's wish. And then as we do those wishes, I will cross them off. Because what I do is I take that episode, so like episode 25, I take that episode. Once it's done, once we've got all the way down through stars and wishes, I'll go back through the wishes and I'll cross everything that actually happened. I'll check those things off, and then because I'm on Google, I will right-click copy or make a copy of that page. And so I just copy the whole episode 25 and I rename it as episode 26. And then I have all the notes from episode 25, and that's what I look at when I start my prep of all the things that happened last session, any weird little notes I took, any of the wishes that might be applicable for this coming session. And Nutrimancer said it in the chat here. I have a tip: end the game in a "what are you going to do next?" so you can prep that single scene. I try my damnedest, and I probably do it about 90% of the time. I try my damnedest to end the session in a way that I know what the first scene's going to be. So even if I'm struggling to figure out what happens next in a story, based on how the end of the last session went, I know how the beginning of the next session's going to go. Like, it can only go one of two ways, or it can only go one way. Is really how I prefer it. So like, I will be like, you guys enter a room, and as you're sitting down eating dinner, the queen enters, and that's where we'll end this episode. So I know that the next episode starts with a conversation with the queen, which makes it far easier for me to prep that. But I do keep a running tally of stuff that happens in the game in my notes that I can just scroll back to. I will say also for in campaign prep, I've mentioned this before, and there's actually a blog post on the website. The 10-minute backstory. The 10-minute backstory has secrets that the players make about their characters that they know and that they don't know. It has NPCs. It has their backstory. So a lot of the time I will open up all of those documents and I'll just do a quick little read through. Or what I normally do actually is I'll open up all those documents at the beginning of the campaign, and I will highlight and copy and paste a bunch of notes from their documents, so I have one big document, and then I will reference that. Be like, okay, we're going here. How does this affect this person's story? Does it? No. Okay, next person. No. Okay, next person. Or how can I take a person from their backstory and put it in this town, or something like that? Because the players creating stuff in their backstory is story. It is story, and they went through the effort of making it, so why not use it, kind of thing. G says, yeah, okay, writing out things you might not remember that you said last session is a good one. Yeah. I write that all down. Let me see. Do I have an example? What did we just play? We just played Mundus Novus, which is our non-streamed game. That G is a part of. Let's see. In my notes, I wrote a note here that says, winter, get a more specific time frame, which was a request from one of the players. And then I wrote a note down that said, several players fostered relationships with the town, which is a thing that could come back. I also have a note here from like session 1 of a person's address, and a letter that I made up on the spot, which says Covencrest Manor 1721, the final expedition, they are dead, I am the last one, I am the watcher, I am the watcher, I am the watcher, which is a thing that I made up on the spot, and I was like, I'm gonna forget this for sure, so I wrote it down. Yeah. Let's see here. If anyone has any questions in chat, feel free to jot them down. We've been trying to keep these to about an hour. I know I did start a little bit late today, but it is 10 till the hour, so probably got another 10, 15, 20 minutes left. So ask your cues if you got them. Let me see here. Let me see here. This is a fun question. Iquin asks, most of, if not all, the content on unMadeGaming is tabletop RPGs. But what are your feelings and interests in LARPs, or live action roleplay? I don't have many feelings, if any at all. LARP seems cool. I don't know that it's for me. I did try. No, that's not true. I can't even say that. I did engage with a LARP at one point. There is a conceptually very cool, very cool. It's called Dystopia Rising. It's based on a tabletop game. I don't know how good the tabletop game is, but it's set in the post-apocalyptic Americas. What I really think is very freaking cool about Dystopia Rising is it's low-key huge. So there is a chapter in Massachusetts. There's a chapter in Pennsylvania. There's a chapter in California. There's a chapter in Washington. There's a chapter in Hawaii. There's a chapter in New Jersey or New York or the tri-state area. And they actually have rules in the LARP for, like, if your character is from the Boston game and you travel to the Philadelphia game, like, there's rules for, like, what happens there. But it's very cool because each area, it's kind of like Fallout. In that each area has its own factions and its own stories and families and sometimes religions and shit like that. And I went so far as I learned about it. I Googled a lot. I wrote a character backstory. I submitted the character backstory for approval. I got approval for the character. I bought a Nerf gun because you're allowed to use Nerf guns in this. I bought a bunch of pieces for a costume, and then I went to the LARP meet and greet where I met everyone who they were all super duper nice, and they were like, you know, we do barbecues and like, you know, potlucks in between sessions, and we have like a boffer camp. And if you don't know what LARPing, boffer is like what the foam swords, what the fighting style is called. So like if you're unaware on how to make one or how to fight with a boffer, they teach that at their home because they have like a big backyard, and they were all super, super nice people. Everyone seemed so lovely. And then I went home and I sat with myself for a minute, and I was like, those people, while great, were so committed to this thing that I am slightly interested in. And I was like, they love this thing on a level that I do not have right now, and I feel shitty about it. And I was like, well, maybe it's not for me. Like the level of community was great. I loved it. But then I was like, maybe, like, I don't want to go in there and just like fuck shit up, and then like never show up again. And then I saw how much it costs, and I was like, no. It was like a couple $100s for like a 72-hour game. So they do it like once a month or once every 2 months, something like that. And it's a whole 3-day weekend. So it's 72 hours. And it was like a couple $100 plus food, more if you want to stay in a cabin at the place where they're playing. But like you're sleeping in a tent, showers are a maybe. And I've been to a convention that lasts 3 to 4 days with a bunch of unshowered nerds, and it's a time. So yeah, it was a big money commitment, that I was just, I was like, man, I don't know if I'm going to want to shell out $300+ a month, to spend 3 days in the woods, and shoot people with a Nerf gun. It seemed like a little bit of an overcommitment for me. So I never actually played. That was the only LARP that I've heard about that was interesting. A close second is in Kansas, in Kansas, in Arkansas. Where the hell's Kansas City? Because it's not in Kansas. I feel like Kansas City, Missouri. Yeah, okay. So it's somewhere in that area. My GM from Afghanistan lives in that general location. and he created this masterful world that we played D&D in. And then when he came home from Afghanistan, he turned that world into a LARP. And it's called Britannis. Britannis? I want to say it's called Britannis. Let me see. Britannis LARP. Send. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if it's still running. But here, if you're in chat, you can see this. If you go to Britannis.com, this is the Britannis Dark Arthurian thing. And so my character from D&D is actually an NPC in this game. He's like a quest giver or something of the kind. He may not be now. He may be dead by now. I don't know. But I thought it was very cool that the world I played D&D in and helped build by playing in is now a LARP. That was pretty freaking cool to me. G says there was a show a bunch of years ago called Heroes of Cosplay, and I think they did an episode on that LARP group. It looked like so much fun. On the LARP group Dystopia Rising. That's cool. That is pretty cool. Yeah, Dystopia Rising. Dystopia Rising LARP. I remember the LARPers in Hawkeye. Yeah. DystopiaRisingLARPs.com is the Dystopia Rising one, and I created a character for the Massachusetts one. Holy shit! Okay, so there's one in Massachusetts, there's one in Connecticut now. Now again, this was like 2016, I think maybe. So there's one in Mass, there's one in Connecticut, there's one in New York, there's one in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Virginia, Ohio, Wisconsin, Michigan, Indiana, Kentucky, Georgia, Florida, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas, New Mexico, Colorado, 2 in California, 1 in Washington, and 1 in Oregon. So they fucking expanded. Holy shit. That's crazy. That's crazy. That's awesome. Good for them. That's really cool. Yeah, that's what made me think that it was so cool, is that it was huge. Yeah, that's very interesting. It's called Dystopia Rising 3.0. That's so interesting. What a cool concept. The next one is in Massachusetts is September 1st. Friday, September 1st. In Massachusetts. So yeah, if you're ever into a post-apocalyptic zombie horror monster LARP, Dystopia Rising is in like a third of the country. So go check it out if you're from the U.S. Yeah. I never got into it myself, but in theory, it's cool. I just don't know if it's specifically for me. I don't have the time or energy for all that. Let's see. Okay, this is a good question from Matt. What was one of your favorite one-off game or series of games done in what you consider a non-serious setting? My favorite one-off game or series of games done in what I consider to be a non-serious setting. Well, we've done so many one-shots over the years from our 12-hour charity streams. Lasers and Feelings is always a great system that has never been serious for me. You roll, I think you roll a d6 and you're rolling on a scale of lasers to feelings. It's the same as Honey Heist. You're rolling on a scale from criminal to bear. There's several of those games on our YouTube. One of which we made a bunch of sexual innuendos because we crashed our ship into another ship, and the ship was called the Queen Anne. So like we made a whole. I think the whole episode started with a bunch of innuendos of our ship, which I forget what the name of it was. Crashing into the back end of the Queen Anne. So obviously the show started with us penetrating Queen Anne from the rear. And then that was the start of the show, and then it just devolved over the course of several hours into hilarious jokes. There was another joke where somebody had grenades in their ass. I don't remember what the context was. Yeah, it was a whole thing. Any of the Zoo Mafia games are completely off the rails. Those are hysterical games. What other non-serious games have I had? Man, I feel like Princesses of Sky Sea wasn't that serious, and that was really fun. I get to play. I played a companion to one of the princesses. A game. I guess the setting. I don't know if the setting was like super serious. Not like the games we play now. The games we play now have a lot of serious tone to them. There was a game back in the day called Island in the Sky, and I played a lovable idiot. Which was a hysterical time for me because I usually don't play lovable idiots. His name was he was a Furbolg druid in D&D, and his name was Human because he's like 7 feet tall, hairy, and looks kind of like a human. So like if you shaved Bigfoot, and his name was Human because so many people would see him and say, "Oh my God, what is that? It's not human." And so he changed his name to Human so that he could be the whoever this human was that everyone was looking for. And he wandered into the party. Like that was his story, is he wandered into the party. He was the least serious character. And he only wanted to be friends. So all of his motivation was for friendship and snacks. So all of his skills, all of his magic abilities were things that would help him make friends. Like they were like charm person, charm animal, or things that would produce food. So that was his entire character. And they were on a mission to like save the world, essentially. Like they're on a floating island that's crashing down to the ground. And they slowly discover that over time. But his whole goal is to just make friends and eat snacks. Semi-serious, semi-funny game. Dot played a dwarf who had rocks in her hands, like rock knuckles and rocks in her hair. Like she'd been digging so long she'd slowly become rocks. Silly character. Thoroughly enjoy playing him. We need context for grenades in your ass. I don't know the context. I do know that there is a clip. I want to say it's still there. There's a clip on Twitch. The clip in the title, I feel like it mentions something about Poonade. It's because somebody, I want to say it was me, was sneaking explosives into wherever the hell we were going in my ass, and for some reason the poo covered grenade ended up in someone's cleavage, and there's like a whole clip about a Poonade. I don't remember what the context is. That's as close as I think I can remember. So that's as much as I got. Lovable idiot is a trope I play well, oddly enough. It's probably because I'm a lovable idiot in real life. I feel like G just wrote this question in. Yeah, it's absolutely G. So it says in the Patreon questions from Anonymous, which is absolutely G. It says, The Rise is one of the best shows on unMadeGaming. What are some of the things you like best about each character? Antares, Mina, Korax, Antares, Salets, and Antares. For those of you who don't watch The Rise, you're wrong. But 2, Antares is G's character. That's a good question. What are some things I like about each character? I'll answer this. I'll entertain your farce here, G. Let's see. I like Mina's innocence, which is why I shit on it. He is a very innocent character. I like that in a world that sucks, arguably. Like the gods are dead, things are bad. In a world that sucks, his innocence is like a light in the dark. Which is why I am trying to corrupt him at every turn, just to make his light shine brighter. So yeah, I really like that about Mina. Korax. I guess it's less. You specifically said character, so I'm trying to be specifically about the character. I have something about Chris, who plays Korax. What about Korax? No, it's everything I'm coming up with is actually Chris. It's not exactly the character. It's the player. So I'm gonna answer that. I do love Korax, and I do think he's a great character. But I think the thing I love about Korax the most is that he's played by Chris. Chris has a catastrophic willingness to just go with the flow. So anytime I throw a GM intrusion at him, anytime I throw something negative at him, anytime I have like a weird story beat, he's like, yep, 100%. 100%, I'm down for it. Korax is an agent of chaos, because Chris is down for anything that is a good story in the vaguest sense. So anything and everything could and does happen to Korax, and I think that's great. He is a catalyst for chaos, and with that party, I think that's his role. Is things happen to him, things happen around him is really what it is. Seydlitz, I love so much about Seydlitz. I'll be honest. From a player perspective, this is one of Matt's first like long-term campaigns, if I'm not mistaken. It's one of his first like long-term characters, and he'd never really been a big role player before this. So for that, you would never guess. If you watch The Rise, you would never guess that this is one of his first characters. I love that on what is arguably one of Matt's first times out, he created a character that has a full family. So he created, he both followed and subverted the most common trope in tabletop gaming. He made a lone wolf hunter who doesn't need anybody and really isn't looking for adventure, right? So typical, what's the typical edgelord kind of character, right? Threw in the dead parent, but then subverted the I'm an orphan trope. He has a mother, he has a sister, the sister has a husband, they have 2 children, so he has a whole family. They have a business that they own. So he both made an edgelord and a super big family man, and I love the juxtaposition of that. And I love that he's the only person without family drama, which is fun. And to play this gruff, edgy kind of character and then bring him home. Because right now we're playing in his home city, so he gets every night. The rest of the players go stay at a tavern, at an inn, and he goes home. He goes home to his mom's house where his sister lives, and he gets to see his niece and nephew, which I think is great. And that's it. Um, I just want to make G scowl and shake her fist at the screen. There it is. Antares. So G plays Antares, and she joined the campaign. I don't even want to say late. Like it was only a couple episodes in that G joined the campaign. But G is also playing an edgelord, but she's playing an edgelord literally on the path of redemption. But when G came in, she obviously had seen some of the game and had spoken to me, and so Antares comes in with some of the juiciest backstory. Like for some of the other characters, I had to like take what they wrote for backstory and like tweak some things around it and like change an NPC slightly here to make it like fit in. Like there was a few tweaks I had to like bring backstory in. G came in with several pages of backstory on top of the 10-minute backstory, and 75% of her backstory was just handing me knives to stab her in the back with. So Antares is the most edgelord plot heavy stabbable in the back character in the party. She's the most traumatic character in a good way. Like she's had the most trauma, and therefore so much plot just generates around Antares because G tied the character so integrally to the plot. Which is very cool. So that's one of my favorite things about Antares is that if and I've said it before in after shows, if G weren't here, the whole campaign would have been completely different. Antares is 100% a linchpin character, and if G had to ever step away from the game, I have no idea what would happen because the character of Antares is so integral to the story right now that I'd be fucked. Yeah, very, very cool. Nutrimate says, "Too bad my weekly games are scheduled at the same time as most unmade games." Our Rise shows are once a month. They're once a month on the 3rd Saturday. Yeah, once a month on the 3rd Saturday of the month is when we have the Rise games. Plus, they're also available on YouTube, obviously. All right, let's do one more question. Here's one. I like this one. This one came in today over in our Discord. Lectu says, are there special challenges to GMing low frequency / once a month or less campaigns like the Rise? Do you have any trouble getting back into the mindset, etc.? Abso-freaking-lutely. Abso-freaking-lutely. There are so one of the challenges is exactly that. I have trouble getting back into the mindset. Also, I do take some notes, like a very few amount of notes, but I, for some reason, in my ADHD addled brain, I decide to rely on the old noodle here to remember everything that happened in the last episode. Now, I remember the broad strokes, and I remember some finer details, but there are specifics. For example, we played Mundus Novus, which is our Vaesen campaign, which is not streamed. And this week, we played it on Sunday, and this week, this past week, G had asked me, hey, at the end of our last session, when I completely improv'd a horrible nightmare scene of gruesome monstrosities to her, she said, hey, I have some specific questions about what happened in that thing. And I went, well, okay, let's see what happens here. Because I remember that it happened. I remember that there was a nightmare scene. I remember that there were people dead in it. But I did not remember specifics. So fortunately, my players understand. And oftentimes we just say, yep, this is what happened. As long as we all agree on it, that's what happened. With that being said, with some shows like The Rise, I do have the option, though I don't take it. I do have the option to go back and rewatch that. And sometimes I do, like if it was very specific or we haven't played in a long, like if we miss an episode of The Rise and it's been 2 months since we played, I will absolutely go back and check something. I'll like skip through just so I can refresh my memory. But yeah, getting back into the mindset is can be a struggle. Because it really depends on like what your mindset is going into that, right? Because it's the whole week for you. What else can suck is several monthly games. So this weekend I had Shattered Crown, so our One Ring game, and then on Friday I had our monthly private D&D game. And then I had on Saturday, I had our monthly The Rise game. And then on Sunday, I had our monthly Mundus Novus game. So I had 3 monthly games all in one weekend that I had to prep for all of them. So I was constantly shifting my mindset to prep for all these games. So that is difficult. Also, 2 out of 3 of those games are not recorded. So I can't go back and watch them. I just rely on that. But on the bright side, especially for games like Mundus Novus, like I said, our Vacid game, the players take notes. And then oftentimes G will use those notes to make her own big-ass note document, and then she'll post that in the Discord, and then all of the players refresh their own memories by reading that. And I refresh my memory as well sometimes if I'm not sure on a certain point. And then usually at the start of the session, we have like a good 5-10 minutes where the players recap what they think happened. And I let them sort of just go at it themselves, and then I'll jump in and correct anything that I think was incorrect. So yeah, prepping them can be hard. For me, with ADHD, remembering to prep them can sometimes be hard. Because as soon as the game ends, you've just been playing for 2 to 3 hours, and the first thing on your mind is not prep the next session. It's go get a drink of water, go to the bathroom, go lay down, go spend time with your family. And then next thing you know, 3 weeks goes by and you're like, shit, I have to prep for that game this week. And I don't remember any of the things I was thinking about. I'm not 100% sure what happened. And then you have to scramble. So remembering to prep, getting back into the mindset can be difficult. And usually what I do for both of those things is I just talk in the chat. I'll talk in the chat group and be like, hey, what do you guys think about this? What's going on here? What are your plans for this? That kind of thing. So there are challenges to doing that. It can be difficult. And I think the more you play low frequency games, the more techniques you develop to work through that, right? Like you don't know what you're going to forget. You don't know. So like when I play at home, one of the things I do in my home games is I don't require, but I ask my players to leave their notebooks at the house because we play at my house. So like I will usually go out and buy a cheapo like dollar composition notepad, and I'll provide all my players with a new notebook. And then I say, hey, just fold your character sheet, slide it in the notebook, leave a notebook. I will keep them here with all the other D&D stuff, and I'll have them. That way, like, one, they don't forget to bring it. They don't forget their notes. They're always here in the house that we play D&D at. But two, I also will take out their stack of notebooks, and I will go through their notes and use that to prep. Because I'm actually a huge fan of the GM being able to see player notes. Because I find there are certain things that you as the GM think you said, or think you made sound important, that the players completely missed, or the players picked up on something that you improved some mundane nonsense off the cuff, and for some reason all of them were like, this is important for some reason, and you're like, shit, well it wasn't, but if 3 out of my 5 players think it was important, I guess it's important now. So I like doing that, or sometimes they've misheard something, but seeing what they wrote down, basically if they wrote it down, they think it's important. So being able to see their notes allows me to see what my players think is important, and then I kind of go from there and pull in and adjust the story accordingly. But yeah, I have a tendency to either prep the session the next day after a session, or the day or the like 2 to 0 days before the session. But there is almost never a chance that like we ran a session and I prepped it 2 weeks later. I've never prepped it 2 weeks early for an episode. It's usually either 0 to 3 days after or 0 to 3 days before the session. Yeah, that's it. It's a good question. I like that one. Cool. All right. It is a little before 9:30, I guess. That's where we're gonna wrap up this Ask a Lich. Some solid questions there. Thank you all for coming and hanging out. Much appreciated. I will get this up over to YouTube. Probably within the next couple days, get all the timestamps in there for all the questions that were answered, and I need to start working on the June, July, and August questions conversion to blog situation. Cool. So in the meantime, guys, if you like what we do here and you want to support the channel, the best way to do that is over on our Patreon, link in the description down below. While you're down there, make sure to click on the Discord link and join us in the Discord. Be a part of the community, be a part of the conversation, and check out the new unMadeGaming.com. We got a bunch of cool stuff on there. We got links to all of our podcasts. We got links to our wiki. We got a blog set up there with a handful of blogs on there. More eyes on the website cannot hurt. And Glenbrook Carnival of Screams module for Tales from the Loop is currently in the playtest stages. I'm waiting on some feedback here. And as soon as I have the feedback, I will put the final touches on that. I'll do the final pass through of editing, and then I will publish that. And so if you're a Patreon, you'll get that for free over on our Patreon, and then for everyone else, it'll be up on Drive-Thru RPG later, probably by the end of September is my goal. That's my plan. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Stay tuned and all that good stuff. But that's it for me. I will see you guys later on this week for more streams. Peace out. Bye.